Every night, across Ukraine, millions of people go to sleep not knowing whether they'll be woken by an air raid siren. Every night, Russia launches swarms of attack drones, sometimes hundreds in a single wave, aimed at power plants, apartment blocks, hospitals, and water pumping stations. And every night, Ukraine scrambles to shoot them all down before the lights go out. For 3 years, that scramble cost a fortune. A single Patriot missile interceptor, over $3 million. A NASAMS round, over $1 million. And what are they shooting down? A drone that costs Russia, at most, $50,000 to build. You do that math, and you quickly realize Ukraine simply cannot win an air defense war by playing Russia's game. So Ukraine changed the game entirely. What you're about to see is not a billion-dollar fighter jet. It's not a cutting-edge stealth bomber. It's a 55-year-old Soviet-era cargo plane, originally built to haul passengers and supplies from rough rural airstrips, that has now become one of the most feared weapons in Ukraine's entire air defense arsenal. They call it Skycarrier, and Russia has absolutely no answer for it. Stay with me, because this story is one of the most remarkable military innovations to emerge from any conflict in modern history. To understand why Skycarrier matters, you have to first understand the scale of what Russia has been doing to Ukraine's skies. When Russia launched its full-scale invasion in February 2022, few analysts predicted that the defining weapon of the conflict would be a cheap, relatively slow, propeller-driven drone originally designed in Iran. But that's exactly what happened. The Shahed 136, known in Russian service as the Garan 2, is, on the surface, unimpressive. It's made of plywood and fiberglass. It hums loudly as it flies. It has a 2,000-kilometer range and carries a 40-kilogram warhead. And it costs Russia somewhere between $20,000 and $50,000 per unit. That might sound expensive until you remember that the missiles Ukraine uses to shoot them down cost anywhere from $1 million to $4 million each. Russia recognized this economic brutality immediately and leaned into it hard. By mid-2024, Russia was launching over 1,000 Shaheds per week at Ukrainian cities. By early 2025, that had surged past 5,000 per month. In March 2026 alone, just a few weeks ago, Russia launched over 6,400 Shahed-type drones in a single month. On March 24th, in a single 24-hour period, Russia fired nearly 950 drones and 35 missiles at Ukraine, the highest single-day total of the entire war. Think about that. Nearly 1,000 drones in one day. The purpose isn't just destruction, though destruction there certainly is. The real goal is economic exhaustion and psychological torture. Even if only 10% of those drones get through, and Russia is willing to accept that, the results are catastrophic. Power grids fail, heating shuts off in winter, civilians spend their nights in shelters, and Ukraine drains its missile stockpiles intercepting weapons that cost a fraction of the price to produce. Ukraine's military leadership understood this trap clearly. General Oleksandr Syrsky, Ukraine's commander-in-chief, warned in January 2026 that Russia was producing 404 Shahed-type drones every single day. Though, number that stunned Western intelligence analysts who had previously estimated far lower figures. Syrsky went further, warning that Russia had ambitions to scale that to 1,000 drones per day by the end of 2026. 1,000 drones every day. Ukraine needed a completely different kind of solution. Not missiles, not expensive hardware. Something that could match cheap with cheap and win. The answer Ukraine came up with is as elegant as it is lethal. Interceptor drones. The concept sounds almost too simple. Instead of firing a $1 million missile at a $50,000 drone, you fire a $1,000 drone at it instead. The Interceptor, a small, fast, purpose-built unmanned aircraft, races toward the incoming Shahed, uses thermal imaging or computer vision to lock onto it, and either rams it directly or detonates a small warhead in proximity. The cost math flips instantly. Suddenly, Ukraine is spending $1,000 to destroy a target that cost Russia $35,000 to $50,000 to build and launch. The economic advantage reverses completely. Ukraine didn't just experiment with this idea. It industrialized it at a scale that no other country on Earth has matched. By the end of 2025, Ukraine was producing over 100,000 interceptor drones per year, with daily production reaching 1,500 units by January 2026. President Zelensky set a target to scale that to 2,000 per day with sufficient funding. And the results were immediate and dramatic. By February 2026, Ukraine's commander-in-chief announced that interceptor drones were responsible for more than 70% of Shahed downings over the capital, Kyiv. Across the country, 1 in every 3 Russian aerial targets destroyed was being taken, down not by a missile or a gun, but by one of these cheap, fast interceptors costing less than a used car. Ukraine's Defense News summarized it perfectly. The math tells the story. A single Patriot interceptor costs over $3 million, a NASAMS round slightly over $1 million. And each Shahed costs Russia as little as $35,000. 1 in every 3 Russian aerial targets over Ukraine is now destroyed by an interceptor drone that costs less than a used car. Several interceptors have become legends on the battlefield. The Sting, built by Wild Hornets, is a quadcopter about the size of a large thermos that can reach 340 kilometers per hour. The P-1 Sun, built by Ukrainian firm Skyfall on a modular 3D printed airframe, can hit speeds of up to 450 kilometers per hour, fast enough to chase down even some of the jet-powered drone variants Russia has developed. The Bagnet, the Odin Win Hit, the VB-140 Flamingo. Ukraine now flies an entire ecosystem of interceptor designs, each tuned for different threat profiles. Skyfall alone reported that the P-1 Sun had destroyed more than 3,000 Shahed-type drones since the start of 2026 alone. But here's where the story takes a crucial turn. Because ground-based interceptors, as effective as they are, have a fundamental limitation. They have to start from zero. They're sitting on the ground or on the back of a truck. When an alert comes in, they have to spin up, launch, climb to altitude, accelerate to combat speed, find the target, and chase it down. That takes time. It burns battery, and it limits range. Ukraine needed a platform that could take the fight to the drones, not wait for them to arrive. They needed something in the air already. Something that could carry interceptors up to altitude and launch them directly into an engagement from a position of advantage. They needed Skycarrier. The Antonov An-28 was never supposed to be a warplane. Designed by the legendary Antonov Design Bureau in Kiev and first flown in 1969, the An-28 is a light twin-engine turboprop built for one purpose, hauling small loads of passengers and cargo from short, unimproved rural airstrips. At a glance, it looks like something you'd find at a remote bush flying service in Alaska. It has a 72-foot wingspan, a 43-foot fuselage, a top speed of only about 220 miles per hour, and a maximum range of roughly 1,200 miles. It's sturdy, reliable, and utterly unglamorous. It was later mass-produced in Poland at the PZL Mielec plant, and modernized variants are still flying cargo and parachute operations across Eastern Europe to this day. In Ukraine, some were used for skydiving. These are not secret military prototypes. These are workhorse aircraft that anyone with a few $1 million and a license could buy. And then the war came. Ukrainian volunteer pilot Timur Fatkulin, a father of 5 who sold his business to fund the program and is legally exempt from military service, looked at this old cargo plane and saw something nobody else did. He saw a drone hunter. The first adaptation was brutally direct. Fatkulin's crew mounted a 6-barrel M134 minigun, the same rotary Gatling-class weapon found on American attack helicopters and gunships, in the An-28's side door. The minigun fires 7 62mm rounds at up to 6,000 rounds per minute. Slow, buzzing Shaheds don't stand a chance when you put that volume of fire into their path. The crew's tactics were equally improvised and brilliant. Ground-based air traffic controllers would track incoming Russian drones on radar, then vector the An-28 toward the threat. Once within visual range, the crew, using night vision goggles and infrared cameras, would locate the target drone against the dark sky, maneuver alongside it, and open fire with the minigun. Cost per kill using this method, roughly $500 and 7. 62mm ammunition. The Shahed they're destroying, $35,000 to $50,000. By October 2025, this single improvised aircraft had confirmed 70 Shahed kills. By the time a French television crew from TF1 rode along on a night sortie in February 2026, the kill count had climbed to nearly 150 confirmed destroyed drones. Fatkulin's rule, captured on camera, was simple. Shoot the drone down over unpopulated terrain. Some intercepts required the An-28 to shadow a Shahed for 5 to 7 minutes, flying alongside it, waiting until it passed over open countryside before engaging. This was already remarkable. A 55-year-old cargo plane, crewed by civilian volunteers, was running one of the most cost-effective anti-drone operations in the entire war. But Timur Fatkulin wasn't done. On April 23, 2026, footage emerged that stopped the global defense community in its tracks. Ukrainian pilot Fatkulin published video from the latest evolution of his An-28 program, and what it showed was genuinely historic. By late April 2026, confirmed gun kills from this single aircraft had surpassed 222 destroyed Russian drones, with a growing separate tally for air-launched interceptor kills on top of that. The New York Times sent a crew to ride along on a sortie and published their account on May 5, 2026. The story had gone global. 2 interceptor systems form the core of the Skycarrier loadout, and they represent a fascinating combination of Ukrainian ingenuity and American engineering. The P-1 Sun is the headliner, built by Ukrainian firm Skyfall, the same company behind several other interceptor designs. The P-1 Sun is constructed on a modular, 3D printed airframe. This isn't just a design choice, it's a strategic one. 3D printed components can be produced rapidly, replaced cheaply, and customized quickly when battlefield conditions change. The entire airframe weighs very little. In terms of performance, the P-1 Sun can operate at altitudes up to 16,400 feet, approximately 5,000 meters, giving it the altitude coverage to engage Shaheds wherever they fly. It reaches speeds of up to 450 kilometers per hour, which is fast enough to chase down propeller-driven Guran 2 variants and, under the right conditions, even engage the newer jet-powered Guran 3. Its guidance system uses a combination of computer vision and thermal imaging for terminal homing, allowing it to operate effectively at night, which is when the vast majority of Russian drone attacks occur. If it fails to locate its target, it can return to base and be reused. And the cost? The Merops AS-3 was built by a company called Perennial Autonomy, formerly known as Project Eagle, and reportedly backed in part by former Google CEO Eric Schmidt. It's an American-made, AI-guided GPS jamming-resistant interceptor drone. In testing at NATO's eastern flank in Poland in November 2025, it demonstrated its ability to identify and engage targets with precision, even in high electronic warfare environments. The AS-3 travels at speeds up to approximately 280 kilometers per hour, carries a 4.4-pound fragmentation warhead for proximity detonation, and has an effective engagement range of 3 to 12 miles. The U.S. Army currently values a single AS-3 at around $15,000, with potential for production scaling to reduce that to $3,000 to $5,000. But here's what makes the AS-3 deployment remarkable. The U.S. Army's procurement of the system happened in 8 days. Army Secretary Daniel Driscoll told Congress that this was a pace that previously would have taken years. The urgency was real. Ukraine was exporting its interceptor expertise to Jordan to help defend American military bases against Iranian Shahed strikes, and the Pentagon spent roughly $4 billion on missile defense interceptors in just the first week of the Iran conflict before pivoting to Ukrainian drone designs. Ukraine is now an exporter of air defense doctrine. Together, the P-1 Sun and Merops AS-3 give the Skycarrier two very different tools. The P-1 Sun is the volume weapon. Cheap, fast-producible, expendable if necessary, capable of engaging in numbers. The Merops AS-3 is the precision weapon. More expensive, AI-guided, ideal for harder targets or scenarios where a fragmentation kill is preferable to a ramming attack. Timur Fatkulin himself described the combination perfectly. You could call it a cheap air-to-air missile. With the minigun still available for close-in engagements, the An-28 Skycarrier is now simultaneously a gunship, a drone carrier, and an airborne command post for interceptor operations. Now let's address the core question. Why does Russia have no effective defense against Skycarrier? The answer lies in the nature of the system itself. First, consider the economics. Russia's entire drone strategy rests on a cost exchange advantage. Launch cheap drones, force Ukraine to respond with expensive missiles, drain Ukraine's budget, and stockpiles faster than the West can resupply them. Skycarrier obliterates that logic. When a P-1 Sun launched from an airborne An-28 destroys a Shahed, the cost exchange reads $1,000 on Ukraine's side, $35,000 to $50,000 on Russia's. Russia is now on the wrong side of its own attrition strategy. Second, consider the platform. The An-28 isn't a sophisticated military aircraft that requires radar lock-on to detect and engage. It's also not the kind of target Russia typically focuses its long-range weapons on. More importantly, it operates at night, vectored by air defense controllers, and it moves constantly. It doesn't need a fixed base. Its short takeoff and landing capability allows it to operate from improvised airstrips Ukraine has already established across the country's eastern regions. You cannot pre-target what you cannot predict. Third, Russia has been attempting to evolve its Shahed designs to counter Ukraine's interceptors. But Skycarrier has stayed ahead of each evolution. When Russia introduced the Guran 3, a jet-powered variant traveling at speeds of 230 to 310 miles per hour, roughly double the earlier propeller-driven models, it was designed to outrun ground-based interceptors. But a P-1 Sun launched from altitude by an airborne Skycarrier still closes that speed gap more effectively than any ground team could. When Russia added onboard cameras and modem antennas to allow mid-flight corrections, Ukraine's thermal imaging-guided interceptors adapted to track maneuvering targets. When Russia began fitting some Shaheds with R-60 air-to-air missiles in a bizarre attempt to make their attack drones self-defensive, turning one-way strike weapons into something capable of shooting back at helicopters and aircraft, the community was shocked. But those R-60-equipped Shaheds fly at the same altitudes and the same speeds as regular Shaheds. An interceptor launched from a Skycarrier at speed from altitude still has geometric advantages that R-60 guidance can struggle to compensate for at low closing velocities. Fourth, the numbers are scaling. Russia is producing 400 drones a day, But Ukraine's interceptor production hit 1,500 per day in January 2026, and that gap continues to widen. By February 2026, over 70% of Shahed downings over Kyiv were being handled by interceptors, not missiles. The Center for Strategic and International Studies confirmed that Ukrainian air defenses caught 99% of incoming drones by late 2024, and the interceptor revolution has kept pace even as Russia scaled its launch numbers. Russia's fundamental problem is this: Skycarrier is not a single silver bullet. It's a doctrinal shift, a new way of thinking about the air defense problem that combines cheap, mass-produced interceptors with mobile airborne launch platforms, all integrated with a network of ground-based air defense controllers. There's no single countermeasure Russia can deploy against that. It would require simultaneously defeating the interceptors themselves, the aircraft carrying them, the ground control network directing them, and the industrial base producing them. And that industrial base, with 500 domestic drone manufacturers and 4 million drones produced per year, is simply too distributed to suppress. The story of Skycarrier is bigger than one aircraft or one conflict. What Ukraine has built in the skies over Kyiv, Kharkiv, and Odessa is a working prototype for how every military in the world will have to defend against mass drone attacks in the future. Consider what's already happening globally. In April 2026, Ukrainian President Zelensky visited Saudi Arabia, the UAE, and Qatar, signing 10-year defense agreements with all three countries specifically around counter-drone expertise. Ukraine's SkyMap command and control platform, which uses thousands of acoustic sensors integrated with interceptor drone networks, has been deployed by the U.S. military at Prince Sultan Air Base in Saudi Arabia, with Ukrainian officers traveling there to train American warfighters. Ukraine's Sting interceptor drones appeared on Fox News being used to counter Iranian Shahed attacks in the Gulf. Initially, Fox presented them as American drones before the mistake was corrected. Ukraine has become the world's leading laboratory, testing ground, and exporter of counter-drone warfare doctrine. This is remarkable for a country that had only 7 domestic drone manufacturers before February 2022. Today, it has approximately 500, produces 4 million drones per year, more than the entire NATO alliance combined, according to Bloomberg, and is teaching the world's most advanced militaries how to fight in this new age of cheap mass aerial weapons. NATO's eastern flank is watching closely. European nations along Russia's border, Finland, the Baltic states, Poland, have experienced Russian drones straying into their airspace during operations. The EU's developing drone wall concept draws directly on Ukrainian innovations. The UK is producing the Octopus interceptor drone, a Ukrainian design domestically, targeting 2,000 units per month to hand to Ukraine under a joint program. The U.S. procurement of the Merops AS-3 in 8 days demonstrated an institutional willingness to learn from what Ukraine has proven in combat. And at the center of all of this, flying slow patrol loops in the dark skies over eastern Ukraine, guided by radar controllers on the ground, carrying its racks of P-1 Sun and Merops interceptors under aging wings, is that 55-year-old An-28 cargo plane, crewed by civilian volunteers who chose this mission because someone had to. There is a detail in this story that deserves to be said plainly because it is extraordinary. Timur Fatkulin, the pilot who developed and documented the Skycarrier program, is not a soldier. He's not drawing military pay. He's a father of 5 who sold his business and poured his savings into building an improvised air defense capability because he believed it needed to exist. He is legally exempt from military conscription. He chose to be there. His crew, 4 people, civilian volunteers, fly these missions at night. They work alongside Ukraine's formal air defense network, responding to vectors from military controllers, but they operate in this unusual gray zone that Ukraine formally authorized in mid-2025, allowing civilians exempt from service to participate in drone interception missions. Their rule is simple, but not easy: never engage a target over populated terrain. Sometimes that means flying alongside a Shahed for 5, 6, 7 minutes, watching it fly, knowing what it's carrying, knowing where it's going, waiting for open countryside before pulling the trigger. In a war full of impossible decisions, that discipline is something remarkable. The New York Times described their craft as one of the country's most cost-effective drone hunters. The war zone called their operation one of the fastest-moving aspects of the conflict. DroneXL noted that a single plane is now a complete countershot laboratory wrapped around a 50-year-old Soviet design. They are a reflection of something that runs through the entire Ukrainian defense engineers, entrepreneurs, and pilots willing to improvise without waiting for bureaucratic permission. The results can be astonishing. 500 drone manufacturers, 100,000 interceptors produced in 2025, 1,500 interceptors per day delivered to frontline units by January 2026. The Brave One Defense Tech cluster funding over 470 grants to unmanned systems projects. Frontline troops ordering drones directly from certified manufacturers through a national marketplace. New drone variants designed, tested, and deployed to combat in a matter of weeks rather than years. This is what a country looks like when it refuses to lose. Russia is producing 400 drones per day and planning to reach 1,000. Its swarms are growing larger, its drone variants more sophisticated, its tactics more layered. The Garand 3 flies faster. The decoy Gerbera drones confuse radar systems. The self-defending Shahed variants with air-to-air missiles create new risks for manned interceptor aircraft. The arms race in the sky above Ukraine is not over. It may never truly be over as long as this conflict continues. But Ukraine has done something no other country has done. It has built a functioning, scalable, cost-positive air defense ecosystem from almost nothing, under fire, in real time. It has reversed the economics of drone warfare, turned civilian volunteers into frontline air defenders, and created a platform, Skycarrier, that every defense establishment on Earth will spend the next decade studying. The N-28, with 222 confirmed kills, should be in a museum. Instead, it's still flying. Every night, that old cargo plane climbs into the dark Ukrainian sky, racks loaded with interceptors worth $1,000 each, vectored toward incoming drones worth 50 times as much. Every night, its civilian crew demonstrates what resourcefulness, courage, and creative engineering can accomplish when the stakes are existential. Russia has no defense against Skycarrier because Skycarrier isn't a weapon. It's an idea. And ideas, especially ones that work this well in combat, are the hardest things in the world to shoot down. If this story changed how you think about modern warfare, drone technology, or what determined people can accomplish with limited resources, smash that like button, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss our next deep dive. Drop a comment below. Do you think Russia will eventually find a counter to Skycarrier? Or has Ukraine permanently changed the economics of air defense warfare? I want to hear your analysis. And if you want to go deeper on Ukraine's full drone war strategy, including the Operation Spiderweb long-range strike that shocked Russian military planners, check out the video linked right here. Until next time, stay sharp.